Hello Internet, it is me, the E-Man, and over the last month there's been a lot of drama surrounding the games Yandere Simulator and Love Letter, and their two creators Yandere Dev and Dr. Apis respectively. Now people have been growing increasingly more disillusioned with Yandere Simulator for over a year at this point. It's nothing new, with most of the frustration stemming from the fact that Yandere Dev has taken over 6 years to develop a glorified demo for the full game that he has promised. Now, it all kind of came to a head at the beginning of this month when his subreddit was hacked and turned into a meme dumping ground just for basically roasting him and the game's troubled development history. But at the same time that this happened, Dr. Apis came out of nowhere and announced that he was going to make his own game, very much in the same style as Yandere Simulator, called Love Letter: My True Feelings. This, in combination with Yandere Dev's subsequent Discord breakdown and long history of erratic behavior and troubling practices such as issuing threats, abusing the YouTube copyright system, and allegedly not paying employees, painted him as the clear villain, Dr. Apis as the clear hero, and created a massive amount of drama surrounding both games. Now, I don't really want to make a video on the drama, because other people have already done that in great detail, and also because I don't really care that much. I just want to play a game where I can take a knife and lodge it deep in an anime girl's skull. Whichever developer gives me that, I'll be happy. Instead, I want to take an objective look at both games, see what I think each one does best, what features I hope to see in the future, and in the end, what game I would like to play, in my opinion. So that being said, let's look at the games. Now personally, I absolutely love stealth games. It's one of my most favorite genres of all time. And while I do like the first-person ones, like Dishonored and the original Thief games, I prefer to play third-person, so my favorite series is Hitman. I've played all the Hitman games multiple times across all different systems, and I absolutely adore all of them. Except for Contracts. Contracts sucks. But it makes perfect sense that both Love Letter and Yandere Simulator are right up my alley gameplay-wise. I really do enjoy playing these games. So if any of my criticisms seem like really specific nitpicks, they probably are. I take my stealth games quite seriously. Now it would make sense to start off by looking at the stealth mechanics. After all, those are the most important part of a stealth game, obviously, and they are notoriously difficult to get right. Now with most other games, like a platformer or a shooter, if your mechanics are slightly off, the game might not be as fun to play and it might be more frustrating, but your game will generally function, if just more poorly than it has any right to. With a stealth game, however, if your mechanics are wrong, your game probably just won't work at all and be abysmal to play. Now, I've never really had any problems per se with the stealth mechanics in Yandere Simulator, but they're not exactly the most fleshed out I've ever seen. You can crouch to sneak around, which is pretty standard, and you do get that kind of growing arrow that tells you from where and how rapidly you're being detected, like in Hitman, so that's nice. You can giggle to draw people's attention to a specific place, which is nice. It acts as the coin flip from Hitman or whistles from a lot of other games. It's a good inclusion because any stealth game that doesn't give you the option to draw someone's attention to a specific area sucks and is a lot harder than it should be. Now the one thing is, I do find you can often almost get away with killing someone in broad daylight with witnesses in the room if the witnesses are just kind of turned to the side. They don't really have any peripheral vision to see the murder happening here. And you only ever really seem to get caught when they notice your blood trail afterwards, because it's line of sight based and it's fairly difficult to clean up. I do, however, really like the fact that when you stab someone you get blood on your uniform as well, and then you have to either purchase a clean uniform using favors or steal one from the girls' locker room. It kind of reminds me how in Wet Work, when you shoot someone, you can't wear their bullet hole-ridden disguise. These kind of mechanics do make stealth and detection a lot harder on the player, but I like that kind of thing. It adds more realism to the game. Now, unfortunately, there's no way to judge a game's stealth mechanics by just viewing demo footage. I mean, we're literally only being shown parts of gameplay the developers actively want us to see. Without actually playing it, there's no way to see how it feels and how it functions under all situations. That being said, by viewing the gameplay footage in the trailers for Love Letter, the stealth mechanics look like they're going to be almost identical to that of Yandere Simulator. You have sneaking, blood trails, detection. If they just don't make it worse, it'll probably be fine. I do hope that they have all kinds of stuff for being able to dump bodies over railings or place them in chests to hide them. I mean, you know, if the authorities find the body after school ends, after the school day, that would kind of make sense. Not being able to hide bodies efficiently is one of the biggest problems I have with Yandere Simulator in its current state, so hopefully they fix that and make it even better. Also, I really like the fact that the more people you kill, the more blurred out the NPC's faces become. It's not really a stealth mechanic, but I just thought I would mention it here. Of course, the one huge change to the stealth mechanics in Love Letter over Yandere Simulator that we do know about is the fact that you will not immediately know who your target is. and honestly, I don't know how I feel about that. Every stealth assassin game I can think of, you go into the level knowing who your target is, and Yandere Simulator is no exception. At the beginning of every week in the game, a new girl arrives and tries to steal away Senpai's affections from you, which is ridiculous because he belongs to you, and only you. And you must find a way to eliminate them by the end of the week. Now, the one problem with this is the game is fairly rigid in how you eliminate them. You have a week to learn their patterns, but their patterns are very deliberate, and there are very specific methods you may use to eliminate them. Sure, you can try to just stab them in a hallway and run away with no witnesses, but almost every aspect of the game is specifically tailored to make that impossible. Now, you can usually get away with doing that in a Hitman game. You have basically total freedom. In addition to the opportunities in the new games that specifically tell you how to kill a target, you can just kind of throw a knife or blow something up and walk away nonchalantly. So I understand why a lot of people don't like in Yandere Simulator how rigid that is. However, Love Letter has almost complete freedom, and perhaps too much freedom. It actually makes me think a lot more like a thief game than an assassin game, where you kind of go into the map and you're like, there's something I have to steal, I'm not sure what it is, but I know it's valuable, and I don't know what size it is, and you have to look around for clues and figure it out, and then figure out how to get it, and then figure out how to get it out. So in Love Letter, you have to kind of sneak around the map, talk to people, see who Senpai talks to, and figure out who your rival is. And presumably, you can get that wrong and kill the wrong girl. I think that would be a really cool feature. I'm just kind of assuming that'll be in the game because it would make sense. But there's also nowhere that tells you how to kill them. You have to figure that out, apparently. There's almost no opportunity system whatsoever, at least we've been told, because Dr. Apis has specifically emphasized that he really wants Love Letter to be a very realistic depiction of a high school, or as realistic as you can get with an anime high school. And he also wants the game to be half stealth assassin game and half social simulator. So the social simulator comes from talking to people and going around interacting with the environment and figuring out what's up. Now, I think this is a really cool concept, and I can think of a couple examples in other games, like the Lady Boyle mission in Dishonored, and a couple of the elusive targets in Hitman where you don't know who you're looking for and you do have to go around and figure it out. If every level of Love Letter is like a Lady Boyle dinner party, I'm totally behind that. That's awesome. Now, since there will be multiple ways of dealing with your rivals, you will be able to neutralize them using non-lethal methods, which for me was fantastic news. I was absolutely delighted when non-lethal approaches were added to Yandere Simulator, as non-lethal runs are one of my favorite things to do in stealth games. I absolutely loved the non-lethal options in Dishonored. Most of them were actually pretty dark and hilarious, and I did a complete non-lethal run of Deus Ex Human Revolution, which, my god, makes that game take forever, but hey, that's just how I get my sick kicks. Now, speaking of multiple playthroughs, that's one of my favorite parts of a stealth game. Replaying the same level 20, 40 times, mastering it, memorizing every detail, and being able to play it in all different ways, both spectacularly and efficiently. So, with that in mind of how I like to play a stealth game, there is one feature of Love Letter I am less than excited about, and that is the fact that all of the NPC paths are going to be randomized. Whether or not they go to the bathroom, what hallway they decide to walk down, they can interact with another NPC, stop, talk, then go to a completely randomized area to do some kind of random event that wasn't pre-planned until the two NPCs bumped into each other. All of this really shows how much Dr. Apis is taking the realism aspect of the game very seriously. He's trying to make a living, breathing high school for you to have as your sandbox playground, and that's awesome. I'm always down for that kind of stuff. However, this does mean you will not be able to memorize guard patrol patterns, because let's face it, the students act as, guards. They might not be able to pull out a gun and shoot you, but they will detect you. They're like walking security cameras. So the fact that you could be having a perfect run and then a student just walks around the corner and ruins everything, I mean, I suppose to some people, they like that. That's extra challenge. You never know what's going to happen. It's not exactly the way I like to play. I like to know exactly what second that guard's going to turn the corner, because I've already planned everything else out to be gone by then. This does mean that every run would be different, although I'm not going to stand here and pretend they'd all be radically different. I mean, it's the same map, people will figure out universal strategies that almost always work. Killing someone in a bathroom, one hallway is less patrolled than others. Someone will figure out some weird caveats in the NPC patterns. I mean, nothing's truly random, but it does mean that you won't be able to just memorize and master a specific path. Start the level, go in, dodge everyone, kill the one girl, get out in 45 seconds and less like you can in Hitman. Now, on one hand, that's how I like to play stealth games, but on the other hand, I don't want Love Letter to just be Hitman with an anime girl skin. I want it to be different, and if this is how it's choosing to be different, I think they're picking a pretty cool way of doing it. Also on the subject of realism, Dr. Apis has specifically stated that in Love Letter he won't include characters like Rybaru from Yandere Simulator, the friend of your rival that basically acts as a glorified bodyguard NPC from Hitman, as he thinks that this is a highly unrealistic mechanic. Now, I both agree and disagree with the removal of characters like Rybaru. On one hand, yeah, it doesn't make sense that a high school student has a trained bodyguard, and even though Yandere Simulator's canon explains it away by saying Rybaru is a trained black belt, and that's why she can use takedown moves, I agree, it's not very realistic. However, my biggest complaint with Rybaru's character is how she functions in gameplay. Mostly, the fact that you can't kill her. It's infuriating, and I understand that that was the point, but at least in Hitman, when your target is constantly surrounded by a bodyguard at all times, you can just kill the bodyguard and then kill the target. Sure, you won't get as good a score, you won't be a silent assassin, but if you don't care, you can just run in, cap both of them in the back of the head, or heck, even cap the target in the head and then run away, and you're done. Now, I understand Hitman's a different game. The whole point is that in Yandere Simulator, you can't get caught because you'd have to return to school every day. And I know the Yandere dev is always saying that murder is not supposed to be easy. But my god, it is not that hard either. The fact that Rybaru is just an immovable object is infuriating. And the fact that she only leaves at certain times, and those are the times that you can kill your target in a very specific way, just adds to how much you get railroaded into the opportunity system in Yandere Simulator. So the fact that Rybaru won't be there, or Rybaru-type characters won't be there in Love Letter, is relieving to know. On the other hand, from a gameplay perspective, you don't want your target to be alone too often. It does make them easier to kill. After all, often the most challenging aspect of a stealth assassin game is dealing with witnesses. Also, from a realistic perspective, most people do have friends around them at most times in high school. I wasn't even that popular, and a lot of the time I was with my friends. However, I do realize if someone really wanted to kill me, they probably could have just waited till I go to the bathroom, stabbed me in there, and it would have taken maybe 20 minutes for anyone to find me. So what I'm hoping they do with Love Letter is that your rival wanders around the school, talks to people, she has her regular places she likes to go, she has her friends that she hangs out with most of the time, but sometimes she's alone and vulnerable. But also, if I find her and her one friend in a deserted hallway, I can just kill both of them and get it over with. Like, yeah, it's sloppy and I won't get a good score, but the best thing you can do in a stealth assassin game is let me be creative with my kills. Now, one last point on realism. Even though I'm totally behind a much more realistic, socially driven high school experience in the game, I do hope they include at least some anime-esque inspired absurdities like Yandere Simulator has. I would legitimately like to try selling my rival's organs to the Yakuza. You know, just like once to see how it goes. You know, you gotta experiment a little bit in high school. I mean, even a game like Hitman has quite a lot of dark humor to break up the more serious overtones of the game as a whole. It just makes it a more lighthearted experience as you choke out an underpaid hotel employee so you can steal his clothes behind a dumpster. Now, one straight-up criticism I do have is that I absolutely dislike the heads-up display featured in the trailers for Love Letter. I think it's vastly inferior to the one in Yandere Simulator. Now, I do understand that this is probably unfair criticism, and this is a massive nitpick, considering a HUD is one of the last things to be finalized when making a game, and just the fact that Love Letter is supposed to be a big social simulator, and yet there's nothing on the HUD to indicate what your reputation is a sign to me that it's completely unfinished. As it stands, the top right corner is basically just copied verbatim from Yandere Simulator, and it looks fine, it's okay, it's no better or worse, but the insanity meter is just a static heart that drops by 20% every time you kill someone, and that just looks awful in comparison to the fully animated heartbeat sensor in Yandere Simulator. Now, hopefully, when the game is finished, the HUD will look radical. That's what I'm hoping for, but as it stands, it's pretty awful. Now, one mechanic that Dr. Apis has specifically stated will not be in Love Letter that is in Yandere Simulator is the panty shot mechanic. Now, in Yandere Simulator, you can covertly take panty shots of the other girls at your school and then sell these photos to InfoChan, a character that, surprisingly enough, acts as an information broker. You can trade these photos as currency to buy such things as item drops, information, and opportunities on how to dispatch your rivals. Now, personally, I'm totally okay with that feature not being carried over in Love Letter. The mechanic always made me fairly uncomfortable. I never liked doing it. I never properly utilized it. Now, you can play all of Yandere Simulator without taking a single panty shot, but if you choose to do so, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. It's a really easy way to gain access to items and information. However, the lack of these mechanics would mean that there isn't really any purpose of having an InfoChan type character, and that's something I would really miss. I really do enjoy the bizarre yet endearing relationship between Yandere-chan and InfoChan, and I do hope that Love Letter has at least some kind of counterpart to that. Additionally, Panties played a second fairly important role in Yandere Simulator. The game just really loved Panties for some reason. I can't believe I'm saying this. The panties you choose to wear in the morning at the beginning of every day give you special ability buffs. you know, better sneak, faster movement speed, all that kind of stuff. And you did have to unlock all the panties. Instead, Love Letter is using accessories that your character wears. I'm kind of assuming the bow you wear in your hair, you can wear different bows for different powers. It's the first thing my mind jumps to. That would make sense. Maybe alternatively, she has a scrunchie on her arm, I think. Maybe you can replace that with different kinds of bracelets or something. I don't know. But they're using definitely an accessories mechanic for what kind of buffs and powers you get. Now, you do have money like you do in Yandere Simulator, and in one of the trailers you do get to see Bo-chan running through the town that's always supposed to be included in Yandere Simulator. So I'm assuming that they're also going to have a town, or at least like a Yakuza game style street that you can go to buy stuff from shops. I'm assuming that's how you get your accessories. Either that or maybe like you raid the lost and found like in real high school. I don't know. Alright, next let's look at the protagonists. So from Yandere Simulator we have Yandere-chan or Ayana, and from Love Letter we have Bo-chan. So immediately from the name, they're trying to make Bo-chan a character that has many traits. I mean, her main thing is that she wears a bow, and she also happens to be a yandere. Whereas with Yandere-chan, it's in the name. She's a yandere. That's what she is. It's very self-explanatory. Now, aesthetically, Yandere-chan is kind of a bland character. That's not necessarily a bad thing, though. You know, from watching all the animated skits over the years, the character clearly does have a lot of personality. It's just not necessarily evident on her face. Whereas Bo-chan, they've clearly tried to put personality into. She looks like a character. I don't know, in my opinion, they're both anime girls. I don't know, they're fine. I guess Bo-chan has a little bit more detail in most of her drawings, but I don't know. I do like the fact that Love Letter is using more modern Japanese school uniforms, whereas Yandere Simulator is using more traditional ones. I always thought that was kind of weird, didn't really fit. But in the end, just like real women, aesthetics are only so important. It's the personality that really counts, and people have always had complaints about Yandere-chan's personality. Mostly the fact that she's not really a traditional yandere at all. She's honestly more of a kudere with yandere tendencies, being completely emotionally detached with the only goal of being with her one true love senpai and killing anyone that gets in the way of that. Whereas with Bo-chan, they're really trying to make her more of a traditional yandere, being a very bubbly, personable girl with lots of friends, kind of like Yuno from Mirai Nikki, who also just happens to kill anyone that talks to the boy she likes. Now personally, I've never had a huge problem with Yandere-chan as a character. Yes, I understand that she's more of a kudere, but it doesn't really matter. Although I do think it might be more fun, especially in a social simulator setting, to play as a more personable character that isn't just the quiet loner in the corner that sharpens a knife all day. Now, it seems like it should be an easy choice. I mean, Bo-chan legitimately seems to be more interesting in both design and character, but, and this is my bias peeking through, over the last several years, I have grown attached to Yandere-chan and also all the background characters like Kokona and Midori, who is my waifu. And as dumb as it sounds, if you actually watch some of the extra skits and read stuff on the website, there is quite a level of backstory and in some cases character development to these characters, many of which are actually pretty well written and interesting characters that I want to see how their stories evolve and develop, and if they end with me twisting a knife in their abdomen. But honestly, if Love Life, that's the wrong show. If Love Letter can give me that and just bring me new characters that are equally as interesting, I'll be fine. So that's about it. I don't really have anything else to compare between the two games. I mean, we've only seen such a limited amount of Love Letter anyway. Overall, aesthetically, the school looks maybe marginally better in the Love Letter trailers than it does in Yandere Simulator. It's very similar. It's more has to do with the random movements of the students, which appear more natural. At the end of the day, I still genuinely enjoy Yandere Simulator. I like the game, and more than anything, I just want to see it released in a fully playable state. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't want to play Love Letter either. They're both really interesting looking games, and it's very frustrating that the two of them have been forced into this head-to-head direct competition. Each game has its pluses and its minuses, and you can argue about which one is slightly better than the other until you're blue in the face, but in the end, it's an almost futile hypothetical. Neither game has ever been fully released. We don't really know what their full potential is. And even if we did, it's like comparing Call of Duty to Battlefield. You can't really say one is better than the other, just which one you prefer to play. And at the end of the day, just like COD and Battlefield, I want to play both. If Yandere Simulator came out tomorrow, I would buy it. if Love Letter came out tomorrow, I would download it and play it. Unfortunately, it's looking like we're only gonna get Love Letter. And that's too bad. Not because Love Letter's an inferior game or because I would much rather play Yandere Simulator, but because I wish we lived in a situation where both games could coexist together and flourish in friendly competition. But unfortunately, due to the actions of many parties, that's not reality. So, to answer my own question of which game I would rather play, I'm going to cheat and say both. Alright, I think that's about it. That's everything I really had to say in the regards of the matter. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it interesting, and if you have any strong opinions, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again on whatever I decide to make next real soon. Goodbye!